talked about and shared is a prophecy of our great grandfathers who talked about laying down our weapons because they understood that the non-Indian would go so far, and it's documented, that they would and they could and they would exterminate us all totally. Our grandfathers knew this, and they said, we will lay down our arms, but we will return in 7 generations with a new weapon, with a new tool to coexist with this non-Indian, and that is education. You know, the historical pain, the historical trauma that we still live with today, and knowing what our grandfathers, our grandmothers had to go through, physical, emotionally, spiritually, and to be taken away from your mother so young, and to expire so far away from home. Your spirit, the remains will bring those spirits home and back to our families, and for a healing process that needs to begin, a healing process to look back. I feel that our people need to, yes, look back and at all the very significant losses in our culture, our traditions, our spirituality, our language, and the big one, land, and identify these significant losses and begin to process through a healing cycle, a grieving cycle, but to do that properly.
Very spiritual, delicate matter to be handled, because when you bring up a body from the ground of that person, you unleash that spirit or that soul of that person. So what's going to happen to the family that is now alive? You know, there's a spiritual connection there that a lot of people don't understand, and it's like when they desecrate our sacred lands. You know, it's the same thing.
You know, I guess there's a lot I don't know about the Carlisle school, but I know my relatives were there when they were young boys, and my great-great-grandfather took them out of Carlisle and brought them home. I would say that we have to go do a ceremony to see if that's what they want to do, because myself, you know, once I'm in a crowd, you know, I don't want someone moving me. You know, hopefully I'm left where I'm put the first time.
Our people have waited long enough to make amends with our spirits, especially the spirit of those children that were buried there. And we haven't forgotten them. We just had no way of resources, and you know, if this could have been done 100 years ago, it probably would have. They left from here in 1879, and maybe it's time for them to return back to this place. So that's why it's really important. And also, you know, we talk about historical grief, and you know, when in this day and age and all the hardships that our people have been experiencing, we need to make amends with the spirit of our people, especially young ones, because when we see these young people dying someplace in a far off country and away from their homelands and never returning, you know, that's one of the things we can do today, is to bring that. So it must have been a really harrowing experience especially for that first group that went there, because the concept of boarding school was new, the idea was new, everything was based under military teachings. So I can just about imagine what our kids went through when they got to Carlisle. You know, maybe America needs to know that they have natives in their backyard that are struggling, having difficulty, but they're still part of life itself. And they need to understand that. You know, it's not, it's like out of sight, out of mind. You know, we need to, America needs to know that we still exist, that we have a culture, we have a way of life, we have language. We still maintain our spirituality, we maintain our culture, we maintain our way of life. We're barely hanging our language, you know. Those are things that are positive. And I think that's what makes us exist here, because it's important. It's an important aspect of.
Hopefully, like, bigger powers, like, know that we have a voice to tell, like, the government or other higher powers that we need help, or, like, we need to do something, or we need something done. Like, you can't change the past, like, no matter what. Like, even if you tried to forget or forgive, it's like, you can't change the past. It's gonna affect us either way. Like, they're the reason why we're on reservations. They're the reason why our people died. They're the reason why, like, we're relying on all this money from the government, like, commodities and, like...
I think that bringing them home will help bring closure to the families, as in reuniting them. And I think it'd be just a great deal in general. I think it's come a lot further than I think it would have, that the youth are involved. And it's just the fact that the youth council is a great part of the efforts to bringing them home is what's shocking a lot of people, because a lot of the time, like, kids aren't really interested in these kind of topics. But with us involving ourselves and bringing them home, it's sparking a lot of movement in, like, other tribes. Like, a lot of youth councils have contacted us and are wanting to also bring the remains of their ancestors home from Carlisle, and they want us to kind of help them and guide them and talk about how we've gotten this far and how they can get that far too.